Good morning. Starting off with a disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial product. All content is for informational purposes only, based on personal opinions and experiences. Trading futures, options, and other financial instruments involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for every investor. You can lose more than your initial investment, so always do your own research and consult with a licensed professional. Perfect. Now I'll bring up the news here. Look at those hangers. News today is just 10 a.m. Michigan consumer sentiment, and then that's nothing else is really important. We've got the oil rig counts, which may be at 1 p.m., but you're getting into the close by then. It's pretty much towards the end of the day on a Friday, too, so. Okay, so that's done. Quick summary of the pre-market sheet. You had an inside day yesterday. Yesterday was inside of prior day's range, which I think I did mention as a possibility. I said you're opening in an imbalanced condition because we are in a gap lower right now. So if that stays the same, you'll be opening in an imbalanced condition. Value's been overlapping sideways. We've been in compression. Weekly is still the only thing one time framing. That's one time framing higher. We had normal variation day type yesterday. This swing low, still weak, obviously, because we haven't tested it. And yeah, key levels are above us would be, well, now gap close, yesterday's low. We've got settle. We've got overnight high. And then we've got the prior highs, which are probably easier to show. Yes, the prior day's high here, 63.94. And then this prior day, which gets us back into the gap like we've been saying all week, 64.36. So yeah, and then below us, we've got prior day's low, which is now not below us. Or that's yesterday's low. Prior day's low is 61.53 here from the big day. We've got the naked VPOC from that day. We've got overnight low, of course, and we've got prior week low down here. All the way down here at 59.93 or something. 59.94 maybe. And you've got some naked stuff along the way, which is more just targets, but yeah, so if we look at the TPO, like I said, we had an inside day yesterday. So we didn't break yesterday's high or low. I had no trades yesterday. I didn't do anything because there was nothing for me to do. As you can see, I'm showing trades and there's nothing. This is yesterday. We were pretty sideways all day with like a slightly bearish skew. There was one trade here that I could have, or I tried to take, but it didn't hit my price and I didn't get filled. But it was a pullback for the short continuation. So could have had the one trade, didn't get on it, not the end of the world, but yeah, like inside day yesterday. So obviously, yes, you came up, you tested, you rejected overnight high, and then you continued lower. And like I said, you definitely had a bearish skew towards the day, but this pop lower was news, and then we were kind of sideways. 62.27 here was yesterday's settle, which held pretty well on these tests lower. And then you ended up closing like just back into IB range, just above IB low. But it looks like sort of the exact same thing has continued. We double checked the high in the overnight. Still couldn't find anything. Checked again, couldn't find anything. And then we started to actually continue lower. This is a pretty good test of full session VWAP there that held. And you've continued lower now ever since. And, now we're in a gap lower. So pretty aggressive selling from pretty aggressive selling in the overnight session. So, yeah, I mean, gap days are the most simple, right? Like, the main two scenarios are always the gap and go, where we just continue. We continue moving lower, we don't look back, or gap revert, where we close the gap, then potentially we continue, or we continue reverting, right? That's pretty much all the scenarios you could have. You could just have chop in the event, like it's a small gap like today. You could end up just chopping around and just closing the gap, early from the chop. Like if it's only 10 ticks, if it's a 10 tick gap, you can be sideways and still close the gap, if that makes sense. Yeah, and like that's really pretty much it. Like settle again, good area. Almost 3 days in a row now where settle's been pretty good. Settle though will probably be a good area here again for sort of a line in the sand for the sellers. If you revert and you can trade above settle and you can stay above, then that likely means the short move is done. If we take a look at the overnight session as well, yeah, perfectly aligns with overnight VPOC. So yeah, again, this sort of area here is going to be the line in the sand for the sellers. You came up, you tested it perfectly, so we'll be watching for that. Like I said, any reversion that gets above here and is able to stay above. So if we do this, that's fine. But if we stay above and we're trading above, then it likely is done to continue higher. So definitely that will be a key level today. Overnight low will be important today as well. For an early break, like for the gap and go scenario, if we break overnight early and we're staying below it, that usually is good for a gap and go, or that's usually a good sign for a gap and go, I'll say. Because obviously you don't have any of yesterday's range high or low to test on the low side now, so you sort of just move it to overnight. Yeah, and really, like I said yesterday, to the low side, below this yesterday's low, 61.53, which we're almost at, there's really nothing to lean on, like from recent at least. So below this 61.53, I'm probably looking just zone to zone. Right, really just for any intraday, like during the day structure to lean on. If you get a pullback to overnight low, then that's good. But anything below this low, and we just haven't been here in a while. So I'll just be looking at my old zones, moving one to the other, zone to zone. So, yeah, and I mean, like, that's all the major stuff, really. I don't think I missed anything super important. Yeah, like definitely if we do end up opening in a gap, I'll definitely be leaning to the short side. Like I said, pretty much not that I'm off longs below settle, but sort of like the same as yesterday, where I would take a long trade to settle if that looked like it was setting up. Like if we start reverting, we close the gap, boom, we impulse through the gap close, we come back down, we test, RTH VWAP or something, and we hold and we continue. I'd take that trade just for settle, like just to this point. Get out and then see the reaction here, and then that would dictate the future trades, right? Like if we get resistance and continue lower, or we break above and continue higher, right? But you need that reaction for those bigger moves. So yeah, so that's pretty much all I'm looking at. As you can tell, like it's pretty consistent. I mean, this week, granted, it's been, I guess, overly consistent because we have been in balance the whole week, just sort of sideways. So the context is not changing day to day pretty much. So usually I'd say it's a bit more specific to the day than it has been this week. But like as you can see, right, it's always relatively consistent. It's always consistent in terms of what I'm looking for. So like things I've mentioned: singles, overnight VPOG, yesterday's value, settle, overnight high low, yesterday's high low, prior week's highs lows, prior week settle. Like it's pretty much always those things, and especially like today when you get a good cluster of them where it's, the line in the sand, right? You have VPOC, yesterday's VPOC, you have yesterday's POC, you have settle, and then you also have overnight VPOC, right? So when it's a cluster like that, it's like if there's only day trader participants or mostly day trader participants, then there's at least going to be a reaction at that level. Like I can say that almost fully, as a fact. Like you don't always, of course, because the market is random, but almost always you at least get a reaction. You obviously don't know what that reaction is going to be, but no matter what that reaction is going to be, it can dictate what you do next pretty clearly, for me at least. And so, yeah, so that's going to be the key area today, as well as overnight low, like I said, which I guess sort of replaces yesterday's low if we do end up opening in a gap, because it is sort of right there, so it's hard to say right now. But we'll get to drawing. Like we'll may as well just do our scenarios. I'm not gonna go, or I'll go prior week high. And then, like I said, anything below that, this low here is pretty much just zone to zone for me. The zone at 63.80 or 60.80, we've got these naked VPOCs. So I'll just barely add those. And then we can do, so we've got naked VPOCs here, extended targets, we've got prior day's low, we've got overnight low, we've got this cluster again, which is our line in the sand. We've got overnight high. We've got, what high is this? 63.94. That's prior day's high, and then we've got prior day's high and prior week's high. So prior week's high, prior day high. Prior week's high is obviously more important in that case on the high side, but they're both worth noting. Overnight high, yesterday's VPOC, POC, and settle plus overnight VPOC. Overnight low, prior low, naked VPOC. Yeah, so pretty much just reiterating the scenarios I was talking about earlier. So in a bullish scenario today, if we do revert and let's say for, the case of the plans, close the gap, even though we're not in a gap right now, we revert, we start moving higher, potentially some room for chop here in this weekly VPOC area, and this is within yesterday's range, yesterday and prior day's range. So you could get choppy, but continuing higher, like I said, breaking above settle. If you're able to stay above, I expect continuation higher, right? Takes overnight high, and pretty much from there just makes its way. But this is the key thing, to break and to stay above. If you can't get this, you likely roll over to just continue chopping here, or you roll over to continue lower. So then obviously we have the gap and go scenario too, which just breaks. If you break prior day's low, you pretty much have the potential to just continue going if sellers are present. Maybe some shallow pullbacks, but again, if it's just day traders here, there's not, most people probably don't have much down here either, right? So you can expect prior low to be the major potential support, as well as potentially overnight low. I'm not going to draw it again, but if you get much below that, it's looking pretty bearish, I would say. Yeah, so like I said, this trade could turn a couple of ways. We could go fully bearish and continue lower, maybe a couple pullbacks, but ultimately continues lower, breaking this prior day's low, or you get down here and then you just turn sideways. You should do it like what we did yesterday, trade between, settle and overnight low or something like that, Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then overnight high potentially could be resistance, but again, this cluster here is much more important to me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not many known support areas for me below us, which is why I'm just zone to zone. I'm just looking for the reaction because there's, nothing much down there as of, the past week or two. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, it's pretty much that simple, consistent. It looks similar day to day. I will note, any news, sort of throws a wrench in all of that, any tariff news or anything, but it is Friday, so, maybe there won't be any because it's Friday kind of thing, give people the weekend to not have to worry about their investments kind of thing. So I'll just pause this quickly and take a screenshot and then I'll end it off. Whoops, I accidentally erased the things already, but here's the last look at the plan. This is a plan for the day, and yeah, hopefully we get, some trades today so I can do an end of day video later and post what I've done. So we'll see about that, and yeah, I'll either, be back here tonight after crude closes or Monday morning for the planned video Monday if I don't have any trades today. So, see you then.